Hey guys, just wanted to put together a quick video for you on Tech 2 on how to do the histogram quiz with a sample size of 100. Now, a lot of people get through that okay, might take them a couple tries, but there's a lot of people who get frustrated with it too, so I want to talk through an example. Hopefully that'll help you out if you're one of those that's stuck and frustrated. Always remember to put your name in this box so that I can tell that it's you and you get credit if it's the challenge and you have the best score. And then I'm going to work on the one with a sample size of 100 here, so I'll make that change and start the quiz. So the main thing I try and look for on these are peaks, and it won't be as clear as with 4,000 pieces of data, so you got to kind of imagine what if more data fell, where does it look like the peak would be. Here's the tallest bar. You don't want to overly pay attention to that, but you want to make sure things are actually rising to a peak on both sides of that. It does look like legitimately this is the peak. And then a fairly equal distance to the left and to the right. So the one that has a peak and symmetry to it is bell-shaped. So I'll choose that. If your tallest bar is on the far left, that only happens with the exponential curve, so I'm going to select right exponential for this one. And then with this next one, we have a peak in the center again with rough symmetry on the two edges, so I'll select bell-shaped again. It says this one is left skewed, so I don't really see that in here. I think I got a little unlucky on this one. If it was really left skewed, the peak would be more over here on the right hand side, and that's not showing up in this graph. So that's the problem with a small sample size, is sometimes random variation will create a peak in a spot that if you had more data is not where the peak would end up. So just a little bad luck on that. It's sometimes they're going to get you. If you see left skewed there, good for you. You would have got this one right, but I really don't see it. It looked more bell-shaped to me. Maybe there's something to these few bars that should have caught my attention. I'm going to go ahead and move on. On this one, the peak seems to be around here, very close to this edge with a long distance to the right. If the peak was more over here where these two bars are, I would say right skewed. With it over here, I would say severely right skewed. These are kind of distractors to that, so if these are really part of the peak, then maybe it's right skewed, but these two I'm going to attribute to random variation and feel like the peak is actually here, very short to one side, longer to the other, so severely right skewed. Seems to be a peak forming here, and if you have two peaks, it's a type of bimodal. U-shaped, they'd be on the very edge. These are not, so I would just select bimodal. Speaking of U-shaped, here's those peaks showing up on the far edge, so U-shaped. Here, there's a peak here and a peak there. Don't go bimodal on that. They're too close to each other. The real peak's probably in the middle. Again, what I mean by the real peak is if we were to get, a few thousand more pieces of data and it smoothed out, what would it look like? I think it's just a random variation in our small sample size that there's a dip here. So I think the real peak will be in this area, longer to the right than the left, so either right skewed or severely right skewed. A bit of a tail forming on this left side, so I think that it's not severe. So I'm going to go with right skewed. This one's a little tricky. If this is the peak, then it's going to be left exponential. If this is the peak, then it's going to be severely left skewed, and it's a bit of a wrestling match for me mentally right now which one's that's going to be. Very flat over here, kind of looks more like an exponential, how flat this is. So I'm going to go ahead and assume maybe this would be the real peak and go with left exponential, but if it says severely left skewed, that just means this is the real peak. So we'll see. But I'm going to go with left exponential, and apparently I was right. This one is messy. A little bump here, a little bump there, spike here. Not sure what to do with this one. If this is the real peak, then it would be left skewed. If this and this are peaks, it would be bimodal. When there's peaks everywhere, there's always the possibility that it's uniform, but with just a straggler out here and a tail on this side, I feel like it's probably not uniform. I'm going to go with the idea that the peak is in here, and that if I had more data, it would rise up like that. And if that was the case, that would be a left skewed, but I'm not terribly confident with that, so let's see. No, that was it. This could be bimodal, peak here, peak there. Could be uniform because it kind of peaks everywhere. But it seems like there's a lot of tall bars here, a lot of tall bars here. I'm going to go with bimodal. If it says uniform, I won't be shocked. Yeah, so see, it was uniform. I never feel too bad if I miss it, but the right answer was one of the two that I was wrestling with, and that seems to be the case here. So, peaks kind of all over the place. It wasn't real well-shaped peaks in those two spots, so that didn't surprise me. I could miss one more and still have a passable score. I need one more right out of the next 3. Right, I need 9 out of 12. Out of the next 2, I got to get one right to have a passing score. So it seems like the peak could be here, or maybe in the middle. This seems like a pretty steep drop right there. So I'm going to go with the idea that this is the real peak in this area. This is a bit of random variation that popped up tall. So I'm going to say long tail on the left, peak very near the right, sudden drop off is severely left skewed. So I got the passing score 9 out of 11, but we should always finish it off. So I have a peak in this area, tail to the right, tail to the left. Could be bell-shaped if this is going to be symmetric in the long run. What I'm looking at has a little bit longer left tail than right. So I'm a little tempted to say left skewed because of that, but I think that's a bit of a fluke and that it's really bell-shaped. But it's either left skewed or bell-shaped. If the peak's really here, it should be bell-shaped. If this tail is longer than the other, then the real peak should be on this side a bit. So could be either, but I'm going to go with bell-shape on this. So let's see what happens. Got it. So 10 out of 12, not bad. So the next step would be to copy this into my report. So I wanted to do Alt print screen, and just a reminder, when I press Alt and here it goes, the graph will almost always disappear the first time you do that. So I'm going to click on refresh, hit Alt again, and then press the print screen button. That's copy. I have Google Doc opened up already, so let me pull that up. This was 1E that I was working on, so I got my label ready. And then I'll do a Control V to paste that in, and then move on to the challenge question. I think there was a question about just discussing how that felt going to the smaller sample size on part F, and then you'll get to that challenge on part G. But there's a quick look at the way I think through identifying those with the sample size of 100. If you did better than 10 out of 12, then you can gloat about that a little bit next time you see me, but this was good enough to pass. And one of them was a wrestling match for me. One of them I guess I was close on both of those, right? Both times I mentioned what the right answer was, but I went with a wrong one. So not too bad, but you can still make fun of me next time you see me if you did better than I did on this one. Okay, I hope that helps with any frustration you were having on that one.